Alright, so if you're looking for a hint, kind of where to start on solving systems of equations written in general form, um, watch this video real quick. I think that hopefully this will help you. If you are kind of lost on what to do, don't feel bad about it. These are by far the hardest problems that we'll do. So um, the basic kind of thing you need to know, the only thing that you need in order to solve these by substitution is you need one equation isolated for a variable. And it doesn't always have to be y. So we talked a lot in class about you have to get your equation to y equals mx plus b. Um, that is really helpful if you're graphing, okay? But if you're going to do substitution, and this is what you're doing on these, will eventually be substitution. If you're doing substitution, you really only need one of the equations isolated for a variable. So that kind of makes it a little bit easier in that you don't always have to solve for y. You can solve for x. In this example, we have this first one solved for x. And what this tells us is that x equals 2y minus 4. So I'm going to take that 2y minus 4, and since this is already isolated for x, I can just go ahead and substitute. So I have my one equation isolated for a variable. In this case, it's the first one, and it's isolated for x. I can go ahead and just put that right in here instead of x. So if I just take that, and now I can do my substitution step, where this is going to replace the x. So it's going to be 3, and I'm just going to write the second equation totally as is, except for replacing the x. So I'm going to replace it with 2y minus 4 minus 5y equals negative 11. From here, we'll have to do some distributive property. So draw in your arrows. 3 times 2y is 6y. 3 times 4 is 12. I have a minus 5y equals negative 11. So continue to just finish solving this. I have 6y minus a 5y, that's just 1y, and then a minus 12, and then that equals negative 11. So then I'll just finish by adding 12 to both sides, and I'll get y equals 1. From this point, I still just have to find x. So I go back up here to my original equation. X equals 2y minus 4. And now that I know y equals 1, I can go ahead and sub that in for y. And so this should just be the easy part. X equals 2 times 1 minus 4, so x equals negative 2. So my final answer then is negative 2 comma 1. Okay. If you're ready to go now, that's fine. Otherwise, there is one more example, because sometimes you won't already have one of the variables solved for, or isolated for, or one of the equations isolated for a variable. So let's look at an example where you don't have one of them isolated. So if you look at both of these equations, we've got an x and a y on both sides. So first thing we need to do is isolate one variable in one equation. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to solve the first one. You can do either one, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to do the first one, so I'm going to solve this for x. So in order to solve that for x, I've got x minus 2y equals 16. I'm going to add 2y to both sides. And again, these are steps that you already know how to do. It's just that now we are adding in substitution as well. So I've solved this for x. I've isolated x. I know that x equals 16 plus 2y. So I'm going to go ahead and sub that in for x on the second equation. And I'll get 5 times 16 plus 2y minus 5y equals 40. Using distributive property, 5 times 16 is 80. 5 times 2y is 10y. Then I've got a minus 5y here that I'll just copy down from there. That equals 40. Over here on the left side, 10y minus 5y is 5y. I still have this 80. So I have 80 plus 5y equals 40. I'm going to subtract 80 from both sides, and I get 5y equals negative 40. Last step, dividing by 5, y equals negative 8. Okay, so then I go ahead and take this negative 8, go ahead and take the negative 8, substitute it back into one of these original equations, or you can sub it in right here if you want, in the y spot. That's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'll get x equals 16 plus 2 times negative 8, which 16 plus, this ends up being negative 16, so x equals 0. So my final answer is 0 comma negative 8. Okay, and you're done from there. So hopefully that helped. Go ahead and go back to your practice problems. If you need to rewatch this or rewind a little bit or copy down the steps, do what you need to do to get a little better understanding of this. And then go back to your practice problems and finish those up.